As much as we're moving towards an all-electric world, the reality is that EV sales just aren't growing as much as they used to. Maybe it's the range anxiety, maybe it's the charging infrastructure, or maybe people just aren't ready to make the full switch yet. This is where plug-in hybrids come in handy. They can offer efficient daily commutes but also hassle-free road trips. This is the 2025 Mercedes-Benz GLC 350e. Let's check it out. First of all, you get to choose between coupe form or an SUV form. In the case of this SUV form, you get 4 different models: the 300, the 350e, the 43, and the 63S, the 2 latter being AMG models. The 350e has a starting MSRP of 65 grand Canadian, but this tester being fairly loaded comes in at 84 grand after deliveries. For context, comparing to a GLC 300, the hybrid plug-in powertrain is effectively a $5,400 premium. So the big headline is that this plug-in hybrid powertrain is capable of doing 87 kilometers of full electric range. And the way they did it is by putting in a large 24.8 kilowatt-hour battery pack in the trunk. And then of course, the battery is connected to the hybrid powertrain up here, which consists of a 2-liter turbo inline-4 paired with an electric motor that's sandwiched in between the transmission and the engine. The engine itself produces 201 horsepower and 238 pound-feet of torque, and the electric motors produce 134 horsepower and 325 pound-feet of torque. The combined output is 313 horsepower and 406 pound-feet of torque. All that power goes through a 9-speed automatic transmission to all 4 wheels. Similar to what I've said for the GLC 43, I think Mercedes has done an excellent job in the styling department because this car looks very elegant, and the AMG package makes it look a little sporty but not too over the top. Up front, you've got LED headlights as standard, but this is upgraded to the digital light system from the Pinnacle trim. You also have some 360 cameras around the car, and if you take a closer look at the grille, you'll also notice that there are hundreds of tiny little silver arrows, which I think is a pretty cool design touch. Over to the side, this GLC has the optional night package, so black mirror cabs, black window trims, and black roof rails, things like that. This plug-in hybrid also gets super beefy 285 wide rear tires and air suspension for the rear because of the extra weight from the battery pack. Up front, however, still uses a normal strut-style double wishbone setup. As for charging, first of all, I'm really glad that the charge port is right here, perfectly symmetrical to the gas cap on the other side. The GLC 350e uses a CCS combo unit, and in terms of charging times, if you plug it into a level 1 110 volt socket, it'll take about 20 hours to recharge. But if you plug it into a level 2 that's maximum supported 9.6 kilowatt, you'll bring the charging time down to about 3 hours. You can even option this with DC fast charging, so up to 60 kilowatts. The last thing I want to mention is that because this has a big battery in the back, your fuel tank size is shrunken down as well, down from 62 liters on a GLC 300 to 49 liters on this. Around back, you've got LED taillights, an optional tow hitch, as well as a touch more sportiness from the AMG package and the night package. The exhaust pipes down here, unfortunately, are completely fake. The real ones are underneath the bumper. Opening up the trunk, you can visibly see that the trunk floor has been raised to accommodate the big battery pack, which equates to about 150 liters worth of lost cargo space compared to the regular GLC. With that said, you can of course still fold down the rear seats, and in this case, 40-20-40 split. Inside, we've got a Panda spec. This is the Neva Gray Article interior, which in plain English means black and white synthetic leather. The Article material feels nice, is very premium, and has proven to be very durable in our 7-year review of the 2018 GLC 300. Unfortunately, this color, however, is quite prone to dirt. I'm already seeing some discoloration on the seats, despite this only having about 7,000 kilometers on the clock. Of course, you have a few different other colors to choose from, as well as available leather and Napa leather options. Space back here is decent at 5'9" with the driver's seat adjusted to my driving position. I've got plenty of leg room and a good amount of headroom. You also have plenty of ambient lighting back here, which at night is really a light show. Heated rear seats are also optional, but unfortunately the seats do not recline, and there's a couple areas with quite cheap materials, like right here and right here. Similar to the exterior, the interior design is also very nice. I especially like the matte trim pieces right here because they attract way less fingerprints compared to the glossy ones. But just like all other modern Mercedes models, you've got minimal amount of physical buttons and a whole lot of screen. The digital cluster and the infotainment screens are both 12 inches in size. They do support wireless Android Auto and wireless Apple CarPlay. In terms of additional things that you can option for, you can get head-up display, panoramic sunroof, Burmester sound system, things like that. But in terms of standard features, you've got heated steering wheel and heated and memory front seats. So despite the software being really good and the steering wheel being aesthetically very pleasing, the steering wheel touchpads just aren't great to use. It's something that I've mentioned in the past, but sometimes when you swipe up and down, it'll think that you're swiping left and right, vice versa. But at least on this side, the buttons are big, and with the help of a really good voice assistant system, the overall user experience is not bad. If you're considering this car, chances are you're going to be spending quite a bit of time driving EV mode, like what I am doing right now. And I'm happy to report that it drives very nicely in EV mode. You do feel occasionally the shift points because all the power goes through the 9-speed automatic, but it's quite smooth, and you also have enough power for in the city and also on the highway. Well, don't expect, doing a bunch of overtakes on the highway, but it's enough, no problem. There's also a very defined point of resistance on the accelerator so you don't accidentally turn on the engine when you don't want to, and efficiency is also quite good. In the city, with air conditioning on, I'm averaging about 20 kilowatt hour per 100 kilometers, and on the highway about 25 kilowatt hour per 100 kilometers. Now, to put it into perspective, this is summer times and it's 32.5 degrees outside, so it's hot and AC needs to be pumping, and to be able to get that sort of efficiency numbers, it's pretty good. So even though this car is rated for 87 kilometers of full electric range, I've been able to easily get over 100 kilometers in my testing. But once you switch to sport mode or battery hold or step past the resistance point, the engine fires up and you have access to all 313 horsepower. Technically, on paper, this GLC 350e is quite a bit more powerful compared to the regular GLC. But because it carries a 400 kilo weight penalty from the battery pack, on paper, 0 to 100 kilometers acceleration is actually half a second slower compared to the regular GLC 300. But on the road, it doesn't really feel that way because the electric torque is quite punchy. When you're not using the battery pack, the hybrid system functions pretty seamlessly. Engine turns on when you need the power and you're accelerating, and engine turns off when you're coasting or slowing down. You also hardly notice the engine turning on, so the whole hybrid operation feels very smooth. The brake pedal also feels very natural, so props to Mercedes for improving that. However, there is a kicker. When you have regen turned on, the brake pedal itself moves for you, which is a little weird, but we'll get into that in a second. So there's a few different modes for regen braking. D is slight regen, which mimics engine braking, so it feels natural when you're slowing down. D plus is no regen at all, so you're kind of just coasting along without any resistance. D minus is maximum regen that you can access, you can set it to, and D auto is regen based on the traffic in front of you. If there's a car in front of you, it slows down with regen braking, but it does not come to a stop. There's no one pedal braking here. In D minus, D auto, and also when you have adaptive cruise control turned on, the brake pedal itself will move when it's slowing down, so definitely something to get used to there. When it comes to handling, although the steering feels pretty nice, I just can't help but notice the extra weight. This GLC feels heavy and is very heavy. When you come to a stop, there's a slight wobble because there's a whole bunch of weight in the front and a whole bunch of weight in the rear, so there's quite a bit of weight transfer going like this when you do come to an absolute stop. Ride quality, on the other hand, is quite good, but don't expect that because this has air suspension in the rear that the ride quality is going to be significantly softer compared to a regular GLC. Based on my unscientific butt detector, it feels pretty similar. In terms of safety tech, blind spot warning, emergency braking, parking assist, and a few other come standard, but what you really want is the intelligent drive package. That includes things like emergency braking at intersections, active blind spot assist, evasive steering, adaptive cruise control, lane centering, lane change assist, things like that. This tester doesn't have that package, but it has the a la carte Distronic system, which means I do have adaptive cruise control, but none of the other ones. Based on my experience on other Mercedes with the intelligent drive package, it works quite well and I have no complaints. There's unfortunately one area that I'm a little disappointed with for this GLC 350e. The fuel economy after the battery runs out is worse than a GLC 300, despite having the ability to act as a self-charging hybrid. According to Mercedes, the GLC 300 is rated for 10 liters per 100 kilometers in the city and 7.6 on the highway. This GLC 350e, however, is only rated for 10.2 liters per 100 kilometers in the city and 8.5 on the highway. Even accounting for the weight penalty, I think it's still a little bit disappointing because this GLC 350e is a proper hybrid. It can do all the things like turning off the engine, recharging, recuperating, putting the energy back into the battery and deploying it at different times, so on and so forth, whereas the GLC 300 is just a mild hybrid. To put it into perspective, the larger Lexus RS 450h Plus with similar horsepower is rated for 6.4 in the city and 7.1 on the highway. If Mercedes can improve a little bit on the post battery depletion fuel economy for this car, I think it would be perfect. Overall, the GLC 350e makes a great looking, comfortable, and luxurious compact SUV. The fact that you can go over 100 kilometers easily on just electric power in one charge is also very impressive. But just know that there are a few sacrifices you have to make. Compared to a GLC 300, it's $5,400 more. It's slightly slower, it's worse on fuel after you use up all the battery power, and potentially you're dealing with a little bit more depreciation because of the complexities from the plug-in hybrid powertrain. But if you're planning to do a lot of EV-only driving, or if you live in a place with high fuel costs, I think Mercedes has made a great vehicle here, striking a good balance between allowing you to do most EV things without the range anxiety. Anyway, what do you guys think? Are you leaning towards a GLC 300 or are you leaning towards a GLC 350e? Or do you just want to get the AMG models? Let me know down in the comments below. Thank you for watching. Don't forget to like and subscribe, and we'll see you in the next one.